rules up for joint practices if new playing rules are passed. Well, if you've heard any of our shows from last week, I love that. And we went through why. It's more beneficial for your team. I think it's going to excite fans more. Frankly, you can make a boatload of more money because TV channels are going to love it. And the rule that he's talking about, again, is no spring portal window, so players can't be poached. So that's not a concern. Then the concern is injuries. I already explained why that's not as much of a concern as people want to, frankly, pretend that it is. Do we need to dive into that? Or have we covered that previously? Why it's a great idea, why Matt Rhule likes it, why Mike Norvell likes it. People just want to jump all over Dion. Dion likes it, and a lot of coaches actually like it. And when I went on Doc Talk, Travis and Rob Zadiska looked at me like I was nuts. And then when I explained what we already went through last week, they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And Rob was like, man, the math, it's very basic. You have 11 players on the field versus 22. That makes a lot of sense. Why didn't I think of that before? And so the injury thing to me, it doesn't ring all that true. Okay, we've already diatribed this last week as to why I'm not as concerned about injuries. And then one person's like, well, if you've only got 11 players on the field, you're getting half the development. So we're concerned about injuries or we're concerned about development. Pick one. All right, so for me, the reason I like another team, okay, versus doing a spring game versus yourself, and I love the joint practice thing, you don't even have to scrimmage in the joint practice. You don't even have to go to the ground. All right, so the injury rate, risk goes down significantly. I mean, if you're concerned about injuries, walking down the street, you could get injured. All right, and actually, unfortunately, I've known some guys that have done that, ironically, which is why I bring that up. But my point is simply this. The injury risk is no more. You could argue less in a spring game because you've got 11 players on the field versus 22 when you're scrimmaging yourself. But the reps themselves for Mr. Well, now you're not developing as many players because one guy's concerned about development, one guy's concerned about injury risk. Like, pick a side. The actual reps you're getting when you're going against somebody else, now depending on who that opponent is, I would personally, if someone wants to go against Northern Iowa, that's fine. If you want to go against Georgia, in other words, you want to maybe go down a level or go up a level, that's all fine. Personally, I would find a school that I think is equivalent to us where we're currently at right now, and I would go against them. I would not do a rival or a Big Ten team because then practices can turn into gigantic WWE matches of fisticuffs, although these would be real, unlike the predetermined WWE matches. But my point is simply the reps themselves would be more quality reps without the injury risk going up. There, I asked you if we needed to diatribe it, and I just diatribed it. You got any other final thoughts on that before we move on? Rhule likes it. Most coaches like it. Get rid of the post-spring portal window so we don't have to worry about poaching players. Anything else, Jake?
Yeah, no, and I think, too, I think sometimes we get like this view of like Matt Rhule anti-spring game because they're taking it down or whatever. That doesn't mean he's anti-competition. I mean, it's all that concern, I think. And they've mentioned injuries before as being part of it, but I think that the majority of that is the concern of the poaching players, after that spring window. So it makes more sense. I think some people might have thought, he's on the other side of this, but this is a different or separate than why they're not having the spring game this season.
That's a good point. It has nothing to do with not wanting competition. It's nothing to do with that. All right, Rhule. Okay. I think Rhule hinted at this or flat out said it at a press conference either in January or I think it was January. Rhule says he expects us to have one of the best D lines around this year. Now, he's there every day. He sees them. Says Elijah Judy is 300 pounds. We were concerned about some of the weights of some of the players yesterday. Obviously, it seems like they put on some weight. That is one of my biggest question marks. Not because of a lack of ability. No, we've got ability up front. We got guys with athleticism. We've got guys who can move. One of the question marks we asked yesterday on the show is like, what would you say, Keona Davis? The last listed weight he had was like 260 or something? I think that's what you mentioned yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
We don't have an updated weight, but apparently he must be bigger. It's the you haven't done it yet. Which, to be clear, doesn't mean you can't do it. Just means you haven't done it yet. Your opportunity is upcoming. Your opportunity to show us that you can do it day in and day out, be consistent, and be good consistently over time is upcoming. Just hasn't happened yet. But we haven't seen it yet. Kind of like when Rocco Spindler says Nebraska is more talented than Notre Dame. Okay, I got to see it on the field. When it comes to the defensive line, I've never questioned the talent or ability, just not proven yet. Matt Rhule's seeing something. I want to believe it. I'm not saying I don't believe it. What I'm saying is we're day 2 of spring, you haven't put on pads yet. How can he be so definitive? That's my question. How can he be so definitive? Because this is like at least the second time he said something similar to this. Jake, give me the answer here. I want the answer. Give me the answer.
Well, I mean,
what's going on?
He said last year that he wants Riley Van Poppel. He thinks redshirting him. Part of that decision is to turn him into the next Ty Robinson. Apparently, they probably feel pretty good about how Riley Van Poppel is coming along there. But he's had a high belief in what they're doing here. Obviously, you know, we do. I'm kind of torn between two thoughts there, which is one, I think that at some point we're going to miss and maybe have undervalued what Ty and Nash did for Nebraska. And then on the other hand, you want to say, you know, at least, you know, maybe they've been preparing behind them. You know, it's not like they've just been sitting around. Well, we got these guys. Well, no, you've got to obviously prepare for the future. And that's what they've done to build this here. So while we're kind of like, well, they don't have this, they don't have that. They've been planning to have this and that all along. And so they feel a little bit better. And I go back to something you said, which was, I think it was Matt Rhule's first year, it was a couple of years ago, one way or the other, where it was a similar situation. There just wasn't a whole lot returning on the defensive line. So we're all kind of going, well, that's going to kind of be a big question mark. And it ended up being a big strength for Nebraska that season.
I thought they were the strength of the team that year.
Yeah.
Like, not just the strength of the defense. I thought they were the strength of the team. Remember, the offense was not great that year. So if you're the strength of the defense at that point, you're probably the strength of the entire freaking team as well. So every year, because this isn't the NFL, you don't keep Patrick Mahomes around for 15 years or all these guys for 5 years. By the way, the average NFL career is 2.7 years. So there's a lot of turnover in the NFL as well. But my point is simply, like, guys cycle in and out because they go on. They go on to the NFL. You know, your eligibility, although it seems different now, does not actually last forever. Okay, with COVID, and now you can go play JUCO for 84 years and D2 for 92 years and come in with 0 years of eligibility actually used up in Division I. It seems different, but eventually you got to cycle out. Somebody else has to step up. So every year there's unproven guys. Doesn't mean they're not good football players. Just means they haven't been able to prove it yet. Now's your opportunity. Let's step up. I talked about it yesterday. The top 4 odds-on favorites to win the national title next year: Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, all have brand new quarterbacks, and all have less than 50% of their returning production, yet they're the top 4 favorite teams in America to win the national title. I'm going to have to trust Rhule on this because they brought in no more additional defensive linemen lately, much like the running back room. I'm going to have to say, Rhule, I think everybody knows we would love a little bit more depth on the O-line. I wouldn't be shocked if we brought in another tackle somewhere. I'm not saying we have to. We'll see how the spring unfolds, how guys look. But that wouldn't shock me. But there's been zero action on the D-line in the running back room. You're going to have to trust Rhule on this. All right. The defensive line is talented. Not a ton of experience, as we know. But Rhule's been fairly bullish on this. We shall see what happens every year. There's young guys, there's unproven guys who step up and play a lot in college football because that's part of the game. Rhule wants former players and media to interact with players and activities during the Husker games. Spring game replacement weekend. And then he says he wants to see Steve Sipple catch a punt. I put out a tweet a while back where I said I wanted to see Steve Sipple run the option. Hey, what happened to the media flag football game, by the way? What happened to that? I'm calling out where'd the media flag football game go? Jake, where'd it go? Did you have something to do with this?
No. They must have had. I mean, they had it at least as on the itinerary, and then once they officially released it, they removed it. So looks like it just didn't make the cut.
I want to see who reached out to Rhule and said we're not doing this. Which person did it? Who did it? I want to see Sipple running the option or catching a punt. I want to see Sam McEwen running a vertical route, catching the deep ball. I want to see Mitch Sherman. I was going to say pancake block somebody, but it's probably, if it's flag football, there's none of that. I want to see Mitch Sherman. I want to talk about his angle of pursuit when he's on defense trying to get the flag. Come on, man. Where'd the media flag football game go? All right, but he does want former players and media to interact with current players at the Husker games. By the way, Vershawn's been invited. Terrell's been invited. I have not been invited to do anything at these games yet.
Uh-oh.
I'm putting it out there. Whoever's in charge, whoever that is, I'm calling you out. And if I don't get invited, that's cool. That's cool. I will explain that I wasn't invited. I will let people know because people will be like, Adam, where are you at? You chicken. No, I'm excited to be there. Ask Jake. The minute I found out about these things, It was literally live on air. I was really excited. So, I don't know where the invite is, but whoever's in charge of this, I'm calling you out. I'm just saying. And if I don't get it, hey, no hard feelings. I will just explain everything to folks. I'll just let the people, this microphone works, and I'll let the folks know. I'm just saying. If I get an invite, I will be there in a heartbeat. All right. Anything else so far that we got? I know Emmett's talking. I got some things from Emmett. All right. Rhule not happy with how some media portrayed his comments about quarterback Dylan Raiola at his last press conference. Rhule reemphasized Raiola can't play at 240, not that he was 240. Did you feel people unfairly covered that? I mean, we talked about it here. Yeah. I was very gentle and delicate with it, but at the end of the day, if you're an elite athlete, supposed to be an elite athlete, getting paid millions of freaking dollars more than anybody else on the entire team, I think it's fair to expect you to be in tip-top shape. I mean, we didn't attack his weight, but it's fair to expect you to be in tip-top shape, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I'll just put it this way. If you say the guy's 230 or 240 and we all don't go, what? He doesn't look like that at all. You know what I mean? Like
he put 240 out there. I'm going to say it. That's right. On him.
Yeah. So it's not it. I that's just kind of. It felt like he was trying to say something through the media, and so maybe I mean he says a lot of things. Not every some things can be misconstrued. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I don't. Sometimes you go, oh, bad media. I don't know if I can go, oh, bad media here.
Bad media. I'm going to spank you like a 4-year-old at Walmart right. Media. I'm not just rapidly talking like I'm like thinking about this, and I'm like, you're the one who put 240 out there. I mean, you said the words, he can't play at 240. The guy's a public speaker as well as a football coach. Like, he does public speaking events. Like, how did you think it was going to be received? There are times when I think you have to decipher through the coach speak, because Matt Rhule's a really good public speaker, to get through the meat of things sometimes. I love his honesty, and I think he's phenomenal with a microphone in front of his face. I love a lot of things, and there's times I agree, there's times I disagree. Throughout this offseason, I've agreed with him way more often than not. When it comes to the D-line and running back room, I'm just going to trust him. When it comes to this, I disagree. You put it out there. He can't play at 240. Okay, well, what do you think people are going to do with that? Well, he must be 215. He must be 280. So I'm just going to gently and respectfully and vehemently disagree with bad media. I like that. Bad media. All right. We still got a few minutes here left in this segment. And here's an actual quote. And I quote, I think we're going to have one of the best D-lines around. Rhule said on reloading the defensive line. All right. There you go. Doubles down. All right. So we can get to, let's see here. We can get to Emmett's comments when we come back. But I've seen Dylan at the practice, and he looks slimmer. So I think I just put it out on social media. And I'll tell you why I worded it this exact way. Because what I found is it's not what you say in life, it's how you say it. I specifically said Dylan Raiola looks slimmer this first week of spring ball. There are things in there for a reason. I didn't say slim. I said slimmer. I didn't put a weight for a reason. And I said this first week of spring ball. Because if he comes back in 3 weeks and he looks like he's 240, I can come back if somebody tries to call me out and I can say, well, that's what he looked like the first week. Or if he comes back and looks like he's 200, I doubt if he'd go, that'd be a little too far. I don't think he's going to go too far. But like I worded things in here specifically this way for a reason. Dylan Raiola looks slimmer. I didn't say slim. I didn't say anything. I said slimmer. And then one guy's like, well, I want to see he looks fit. Okay, how particular are you going to get on exact wording? All right, this first week of spring ball, the first week. Weight goes up and down over time. Does that make sense? Does that make sense why I explained that? Yeah. Like how you word things matters. Okay, it's not what you say, it's how you say it 90% of the time. Dylan Raiola looks slimmer, and here's why that matters. Okay, because he needs to have a little bit quicker feet. He needs to be a little bit more nimble in the pocket. He needs to be a little quicker when he does take off. I actually think he's a little faster than most people realize. And when he lowers the shoulder, which, by the way, got to learn how to slide, when to slide, all those good things, when to run out of bounds. When he lowers the shoulder, the more fit, to me, like slimmer, fit, Another way of saying that is popular musculature. You lower the shoulder, you're going to bring a little bit more boom. Even if you don't have as much weight, a little bit more boom because you're going fast, you got a little bit more muscle behind it. So I think Dylan Raiola looks slimmer, and I think it's a great start to this spring as well.